For the Investing News Network, I am Brian McGovern, here today with Matt Carr, Chief Trend Strategist of the Oxford Club. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian.
Matt, we're getting very close to the age of getting all the results of the elections. How have you been dealing with the stress of following all along?
Well, so one of the things that we've kind of done is sort of prepared for this. Like I didn't think we were going to see results right away. And one of the great things that I do is following trends and patterns. So over the past month, I've covered in depth something that's called the October effect, especially in election years. The markets collapse in that month, like leading up to the election, as like all of this uncertainty reaches like a crescendo. And that's exactly what we watched play out. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 4.6% in October. That's the largest pullback in that month during election year since 2008. And more importantly, it's also the fifth consecutive October before a U.S. presidential election that the Dow has ended the month with this big drop, including that, worst week ever before an election. So, that's why I've been preaching for weeks that despite everything 2020 is kind of throwing at us, the move that we saw in October is normal. That's not abnormal. Us not having any sort of election results, that's also to be expected, and kind of prepare for that. And so all of this is laying the groundwork to provide a little cushion of comfort, kind of if nothing else does in this year and what we've seen so far. So for me, we've been kind of building this expectation in for my readers and subscribers that, this is the volatility we expect. This is the volatility that we want to go ahead and embrace. We don't think that there's going to be election results right away, and that's fine. Don't worry, don't panic. This is a kind of a normal market behavior that we see in election years, especially over the last 12 years where things have gotten a little bit more divisive.
It's funny you mentioned volatility. Volatility and the cannabis stock market have been siblings of sorts for these past few years, and this is no different. What have you sort of seen in terms of the ups and downs for cannabis stocks in such a crucial election for the market?
So I'll say, heading into the election, and I think we've talked about this in the past, I believe no matter what happened, cannabis was going to be the clear winner on election night. There are 5 states that had legalization measures on the ballot. All 5 of those states passed those measures, including the one we really wanted in Mississippi. And so that's been great. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Those 5 states have the opportunity to add as much as $9 billion in new revenue between now and 2025. A lot of that's going to be coming from New Jersey, even though Arizona has this very strong medicinal market at the moment. We expect that to continue to be buoyed by the adult use. So that has been good. That volatility, we've been positioning ourselves for this all year through companies like Grow Generation and Innovative Industrial Properties, right? Grow Generation, the largest hydroponics retailer, which is a great proxy on the expansion of the cannabis market, because it's not plant touching, but it is like kind of a pick and shovel play. You can see that growth in its revenue. IIPR, being the Cannabis Real Estate Trust, not only do you get, this buoy from the market expansion, but then you also have that great dividend yield. So that's that. Now, with that being said, cannabis has had a pretty strong year. We've already seen companies, especially in the U.S., the American multi-state operators, begin to sit new 52-week highs. Curaleaf, Trulieve, all those companies were riding up into the election. That's great. I still believe those are the best opportunities on the American cannabis market, as we now have 15 states that have legalized adult use, 36 states that have legalized medicinal use, a total of 47 states that have some sort of legal possession of some form or another, or decriminalization. So that's a very strong market. What's been so kind of surprising to me, especially in the last couple of days, is the sort of movement in the cannabis, the Canadian cannabis sector, where those have kind of been playing catch up, and you see big moves in that market today, especially as the results are kind of looking more like, Biden might take the House instead of Trump. That to me is a little interesting, but at the moment, cannabis is still illegal at the federal level in the United States. So those Canadian companies are really limited in their presence. But since those are kind of the most actively traded because they trade on major U.S. exchanges, NYSE and the NASDAQ, those are where investors are turning for this kind of proxy on the results from those states. But I would still 100% invest more into those American multi-state operators, or even the multi-state operator ETF, MSOS.
Yeah, as you said, as we are discussing things now on Friday, November 6th at almost 10:20 in the morning Eastern time, things are trending towards Biden. Can you maybe describe a little bit of how you would view a Biden presidency in terms of cannabis policy? You talked to me in the past about how things could very well shift between actual meaningful changes and a semi-related status quo path forward. What is your evaluation of that moving ahead?
Well, I still believe, Biden and Harris, they're both in favor of legalization or some change at the federal level. I don't believe that is a first 100-day sort of thing that they're focusing on. There's so many other things that they're going to have to tackle first. I believe, as I mentioned before, in the Democratic platform, the 92 pages plus, there was just one paragraph given to the legalization of cannabis. The biggest opportunity for cannabis would have been if the Democrats were able to take control of the Senate, and that looks like they have failed to do so. The best opportunity that they could have is go for a 50-50 split, and we're not going to know the results of the Senate until January 20th, until much later in January, because you're going to have these runoff elections down for the two seats in Georgia. So for me, that was the biggest opportunity. I think going to continue to make these inroads towards some change at the federal level. We already see at the state level that this is working. So part of me wonders if there really is going to be a change in the next couple of years, because you can see the state expansion. You had the 5 states that approved legalization. More states after the election have come out and said, well, I think we're going to maybe consider legalization too. Already the majority of the states have legalized medicinal use. That maybe that's the change that happens at the federal level. I would really love to see something like the Safe Banking Act clear through Congress, but if the Republicans still control the Senate, that's going to be a little bit harder push, I think, just over the immediate near term.
Matt, I'm curious about your opinion on this situation where we are seeing more and more approval for cannabis as a viable market. You mentioned yourself, there's 5 new states that overwhelmingly supported the industry. Data that shows, polls that show that it's not, it's a bipartisan issue. Both Democrats and Republican voters care and want to see this issue moving forward. Why is it still that transition at the federal level, or sort of at the big picture level, for any party to campaign on this, to platform on this? Why is that still something that's missing? Why is that still, maybe is it the stigma that still adheres to that for big picture politics? Because it's clear that at the state level, these issues are very supported and people care about them.
Yeah, and so it is a very interesting thing. I've talked to CEOs where, you do see polls that show the majority of Americans do support legalization. When you talk about medical marijuana, medicinal cannabis, the support for that skyrockets, and across both parties, Democrat and Republican. But the elected officials are kind of from this sort of I guess, old school mindset. And that's what you see, especially in the Republicans in Congress. That's where those party lines are drawn. Democrats are in favor of legalization. Democrats want to move forward. It's these older Republicans that tend to stand in the way, especially in the Senate. It's very weird to me because you're you are seeing that the states and the populace are supporting this, and CEOs have told me that we thought this was a country where democracy ruled, that if the majority of people want something, then that should be moved forward. But that's where this hangup is. And this is just something ideologically kind of ingrained in sort of the career politicians on the Republican side. You would like to see that change. You would like to see some sort of move the other direction. We've been hoping for it, but there has been this really slow movement. Now, with that being said, there has been some success with the kind of hands-off approach that the Trump administration has taken for the last year or two, which is to just kind of allow the states to go ahead and move forward with whatever they want to do. And that's worked well, and you see it work well. So that's, like I said, but it's kind of worked so well that that's where I have some reservations about whether there's going to be a change at the federal level in the immediate near term. Now, I still believe there's a change at the federal level by 2024, by 2025, because we're just moving that direction. But I don't think Biden or Harris are going to come in and immediately push for legalization.
Okay, I see. And as the last thing, from the new state markets that have approved cannabis programs, which one excites you the most from a possibility perspective?
Well, I think New Jersey is still the most exciting one because of the size. This is, like I said, of the $9 billion in projected revenue, all these states are going to, by 2025, the majority of that is coming from New Jersey. New Jersey also would either siphon off some of the New York market, or at the very least force New York to make a change themselves. So New Jersey to me is the most exciting of the five that legalize. That's the largest opportunity. That again moves for that legalization of those major East Coast states, and that's truly great. That's where all of those sales are going to be. We have the two coasts that have filled in with legalization, and I think we'll continue to see that over the next several years, especially as these, like I said, these big, heavy populated, densely populated states that are moving towards legalization, because that's where you have the best market opportunities. Okay,
we'll wrap it up there. Matt, thank you so much for your time again and for giving us a little bit of clarity in this nebulous time for politics at large.
Hey, no problem. And I just want to say, if I can just do a closing note, I know there's a lot of concerns as we move into the new year. Let's say the Democrats win, the Democrats take the White House. There's concerns that the market is going to drop. If you look at the data, that is not true, right? The two of the presidents that have seen the greatest stock market returns over the last several decades has been Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton saw the S&P 500 more than triple. Barack Obama saw the S&P 500 nearly triple during his tenure. The worst performances were from Republicans, which was George W. Bush and Nixon. Now, that's not totally their fault, but my thing is, don't invest because of politics, or don't be moved by politics to do something that's going to be substantially damaging to your financial independence. Like, so there are people I've known over the years that one party wins, they're like, oh, I go completely to cash because the market is going to collapse. They're going to lead to demise. That almost, never happens. The market has a tendency to only move in one direction ultimately, and that's up. Like, we'll have down days, months, weeks, even years, but ultimately it only moves in one direction. So regardless of what happens at the White House or in the Oval Office, you always want to make sure that you stay invested in the markets and that you're making sure that you're working towards your own financial goals that you have on the horizon.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Matt. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for a lot more interviews. For the Investing News Network, I am Brian McGovern, and we'll see you next time.